What is your absolutely favorite quote you've heard? When you are good at something, you will tell everyone. When you are great, everyone will tell you. Me, Lamau, I don't have imposter syndrome. Also me, when you are mediocre at something, everyone will tell you you're great, but only you know better. Some years ago, I was lucky enough invited to a gathering of great and good people, artists and scientists, writers and discoverers of things. And I felt that at any moment they would realize that I didn't qualify to be there, among these people who had really done things. On my second or third night there, I was standing at the back of the hall, while a musical entertainment happened, and I started talking to a very nice, polite, elderly gentleman about several things, including our shared first name. And then he pointed to the hall of people, and said words to the effect of, "I just look at all these people, and I think, what the heck am I doing here? They've made amazing things. I just went where I was sent." And I said, "Yes. But you were the first man on the moon. I think that counts for something." Neil Gaiman. I feel like the paragraph you left off at the end is important. And I felt a bit better. Because if Neil Armstrong felt like an imposter, maybe everyone did. Maybe there weren't any grown-ups, only people who had worked hard and also got lucky and were slightly out of their depth, all of us doing the best job we could, which is all we can really hope for. I'm a professor, fairly well established now, and have met and often had many beers with many of the famous people in my field. Talking among ourselves, I always get the impression that we, the leaders in the field, are all just that small percentage of graduate students who got lucky, and now have to pretend like we know how to run-ish until a new batch takes over and I can go emeritus. It may honestly be the universe working in mysterious ways, but I really needed to read this today. Thanks for sharing. Absolutely love that. Never read any Neil Gaiman, but now thinking I should. I admire the humbleness, although there are limits to how much of that is good if it keeps you from getting excited about what you're doing. Well, in general, that's the guy's point when he talks about imposter syndrome actually. He wasn't saying emulate Neil Armstrong and how humble he is and undercut your own achievements, but rather to understand many people are going to feel that they don't deserve what they have, but that doesn't make you a less important person. A ship is safe in harbor, but that's not what ships are for. But that's what harbors are for. Conversely, a smooth sea never made a skilled sailor. Franklin D. Roosevelt. The same hammer which shatters the glass, forges the steel. Adversity can break us or it can make us stronger from the experience. This one was on my RA's whiteboard outside his office when I moved in. Decided to go out that night, found a fraternity that I love dearly, respects me, reflects the values that I hold dear, and some of the best friends I've ever had because of this quote. Often, the less there is to justify a traditional custom, the harder it is to get rid of it. Mark Twain. Love his quotes. One of my faves is, politicians and diapers should be changed often and for the same reason. Travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness, and many of our people need it sorely on these accounts. Broad, wholesome, charitable views of men and things cannot be acquired by vegetating in one little corner of the earth all one's lifetime. Mark Twain. Similar quite, no idea the source. You can't reason someone out of an argument they didn't reason themselves into. Be as you wish to seem. Socrates. This is a solid foundation for life, emo. In a similar vein, we must be careful who we pretend to be, because we are who we pretend to be, Vonnegut. The Bears are who we thought they were. Dennis Green. Slowly all the roles we act out become our identity. And in the end we are what we pretend to be. I wonder if that was a direct Vonnegut reference, or if it's just a great minds think alike kind of deal. Either way, really cool. You are what you is, Frank Zappa. I don't like this one because of some people in my past who pretended to be good people in outward appearance but then would be very unkind humans behind closed doors. This would easily twisted to imply that they are kind people. I use it as a kind of warning. That there is no such thing as pretending to be a bad person. That there is no humor at the expense of others. That just joking is no excuse, that you can't say yeah I made a mistake but that's not who I really am. You are what you do, you are who you pretend you are. If you joke or pretend to be an awful person, or if you are an awful person ironically, then you are just simply an awful person. But it isn't as dreary as it sounds. It also implies the inverse. That you can change. You can improve yourself. That if you were to decide no longer to be an awful person, to pretend to be good, then that in itself makes you good. At least in that moment. I feel this 100%. I'm someone who plays dumb sometimes to empathize or as a way to question someone else's actions in a way that avoids me sounding condescending. Imagine my surprise when these people I was doing this with start all telling me they think I'm dumb more or less, and there are certain things that might be too complex for me. Lesson learned. Oddly enough, my favorite was relayed to me from a chem teacher who despised me for some reason. Your focus determines your reality. I often find that if I'm scared of being seen as something or scared of doing something wrong, I'll subconsciously start doing said thing or acting like it and ruin it for myself. Best to focus on the positive and imagine yourself being the way you want to be seen. This is an actual thing. I can't remember the term/phrase for it. But essentially, if you think someone sees you as a certain way, you're more likely to act that way. It's why teenagers either become very respecting or disrespecting depending on the world around them. BC they feel the world views them one way or the other and accidentally lean into it. The only opinion of yourself that's important is your own. If you could go back in time and meet yourself as a child, be your own role model. On the other hand, it's really easy to lie to yourself if you never seek anyone else's opinion. I guess just be careful about whose opinions you care about. But I think this works too. Others' opinions only matter as a guide to whether you are being who you want to be, not as a judge of who you are. As a guiding principle, yours works too. If you don't want to be seen as a liar, don't lie. If you don't want to be seen as judgmental, don't judge. If you don't want to be seen as impatient, then be patient. I think the root of it is that you decide what kind of person you want to be, and then you focus your effort internally, on truly, deeply, sincerely being that person, and let the rest take care of itself. The best way to be perceived in a certain way is to truly be that way. You can only fake it so long, and when you do you lack sincerity and integrity. Best to continually work on yourself, and strive to truly be the person you wish to be viewed as. It's the long game in life, but it's worth it. That's not the reverse of it, that's the logical equivalent. Inverting all of the ifs of a statement is called the contrapositive of it and is the exact same. It's an important concept in discrete math. Be as you wish to seem equals don't be as you don't wish to seem. The contrapositive is the only reverse relation which is always true if the first statement is true, so reverse order and negate both statements. Don't seem as you don't wish to be. Logically fulfills the same condition. Just reversing them alone is not the same thing. On this path, I've run into this issue along with an additional one. I've become very intolerant towards people who are not making similar efforts, and it's getting hard to tell if I'm overthinking things or if I'm just running into a lot of assholes. I'm a pretty joyful person in general, but things like listening to music without headphones in the office, being loud/brash in public, or trying to change the music on my PC without asking for new people, are really starting to get to me. I've developed such a focus on being considerate that I'm starting to second guess many things, and it's reducing my quality of life. I feel like I've reached a point of having to ask myself, do I work towards being a better person or a happier one? I always liked Kurt Vonnegut's version of this one: we are what we pretend to be, so we must be careful about what we pretend to be. Yeah, I always thought of it like, who are you, really, apart from the things you do and say? Like, if you think you're really a nice person at heart, but you treat other people badly, then you're wrong. You're a mean person. The good news is, all you have to do to become a nice person is start treating people better. Vonnegut's quote is from Mother Night, which is about an American spy who moves to Germany before the war and becomes a Nazi propagandist. The problem is that he's too good at what he does, and although he's giving the Americans useful information, he's never quite sure whether he's doing more harm than good, regardless of his intentions. Be the person your dog thinks you are. Similar to Shen's always act as if girls are watching, or boys depending on who you are attracted to. Fake it until you make it. I don't think that's the essence of this quote. Fake it until you make it is all about how you should behave to be perceived in a certain way. But the original quote is all about how you should actually be. So, don't worry about how people perceive you. Work on yourself, and be the person that you want to be perceived as. It's kind of the opposite approach. It's basically make it until you don't need to fake it. I agree, partially. Fake it until you make it is essentially the same ideal, just with different perceptions. More of a try to make others, and yourself, perceive yourself of this until you actually become it. Not necessarily the opposite, just different. I got the same message from a scene in BoJack Horseman. BoJack is asking Diane to tell him that he is a good person deep down, and she says that's the thing. I don't think I believe in deep down. I kinda think that all you are is just the things that you do. Since I heard that, I have been trying really hard to live my life that way. Instead of insisting that I am a kind, generous person inside, I focus on what I have done lately that is kind or generous. I focus way more on my actions instead of my intentions. We are what we repeatedly do, commonly, incorrectly, attributed to Aristotle, but rephrased from something he did say. I do like this view also. Don't lie to yourself and say you are one thing, if your actions say otherwise. If you lie, you are a liar. If you cheat, you are a cheater. Etc. Don't think of yourself one way if you don't actually behave that way. It's not who I am underneath. It's what I do that defines me. Brute Batman. My friend's dad told me that was quoted by Plato. Thanks for posting this comment. Now I know, haha. Pretty much all of Socrates' quotes are brought from Plato. Socrates never really wrote down anything, but Plato did. So how much is true and how much is fiction we can only speculate, but it was thanks to Plato's writing we praise Socrates today. Yeah, I've read about that. They say Socrates didn't believe in the written word as a form of learning, said it diluted the ideas and intentions of the writer, so he preferred traditional oration. He's not wrong, some things simply can't be expressed in written words. But then the only reason we even know any of this is because Plato wrote it down. Socrates believed that philosophy was in its purest form through oration. He believed that one should always be altering and changing their beliefs in the face of new truth, however you want to define that. In any case, he basically believed that writing down what you thought about the world only left room for interlocutors to tear your argument down and say, see, this guy's an idiot. And everyone who reads that second guy's writing nods along going, oh yeah, I see. It seems he was correct as well, because since Plato, and including Plato, there have been opponents to just about every philosophy possible. Socrates, however, because he didn't write firsthand, is almost, at this point, a divine representation of purest philosophy. That is, you can't disprove what he said because he never stopped learning and changing what he believed to be the truth. Edit, all of this to say, Socrates didn't hate writing or anything, but that writing puts limits on true philosophy. Isn't the very existence of Socrates something some people question? Some people believe he was entirely made up by Plato? Philosophy major here. Yeah, I've heard this come up before, but considering there was another student of Socrates, Xenophon, who also wrote about Socrates, most believe he did actually exist. For the most part, Plato and Xenophon agree on the details of Socrates' demeanor and appearance, so most take those two different accounts, Xenophon's and Plato's, to be at least somewhat representative of a real man. The discrepancy that is argued is what was Socrates' actual thoughts/arguments versus Plato/Xenophon putting words in the mouth of Socrates. I will admit I haven't read/studied Xenophon firsthand, so all of this is what I have learned in studying Plato and hearing of Xenophon. Joe Rogan version: strive to be the guy you pretend to be when you're trying to get laid. Everyone seems to think that this is fake it until you make it, but to me it seems to be closer to walk the walk. He's urging people to be. That's a call to be genuine with your actions, not a call to put up a facade. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Seneca. I love that one, reminds me of the Shakespeare quote from Julius Caesar. A coward dies 1,000 times before his death, but the valiant taste of death but once. Seneca is my favorite writer ever. Another couple of paraphrases of his quotes that I like to live by are: if the person that angers you is inferior to you, spare him. If he's superior, spare yourself. There's no misfortune for the wise man, because even when he goes through something that we call bad, he'll come out a more experienced, better person. If he's a better person now, was that misfortune at all? Bonus. Anger is the only unnatural human feeling. Humans created it, and only humans have it. It's clearly unnatural because it's the only one that to damage others, damages yourself, and that's contrary to biology and survival itself. Mind you, we're not talking about aggressiveness and self-defense, but human anger and revenge. Bonus 2. Claim yourself back from those who think they own you. Time is the most precious thing you own. A similar quote from I believe, Mark Twain. I have suffered many things in life, some of which actually happened. Sometimes, even to live is an act of courage. If it weren't so long, I'd get that inked somewhere I could see it constantly. And conversely from The Greatest Showman. Men suffer more from imagining too little than too much.